Welcome back to Blasphemous Nutrition. I'm your host, Aimee, and today I'm speaking with Kate Mahoney, a supplement expert with nearly 30 years of experience. Kate has served as the vice chair of the Certified Dietary Supplement Professional Committee for the National Association of Nutrition Professionals and has also served as a primary contributing editor of the Dietary Supplement Quality Reference Guide. She is board certified in functional nutrition, has been an instructor for up-and-coming functional nutrition students, and has experience operating a clinical practice of her own. She's the creator of the Supplement Academy, an online curriculum offering comprehensive, unbiased, and agenda-free dietary supplement education for health practitioners worldwide. Kate is here today to help us better understand the supplement industry and offer some guidance on how to navigate the conflicting incentives, questionable practices, and dicey regulation at the heart of this multi-billion-dollar industry. There are some great takeaways in this episode, so stay tuned. Hey, Rebels. Welcome to Blasphemous Nutrition. Consider this podcast your pantry full of clarity, perspective, and the nuance needed to counter the superficial health advice so freely given on the internet. I'm Aimee, the unapologetically candid host of Blasphemous Nutrition and a double-degreed nutritionist with 20 years experience. I'm here to share a more nuanced take on living and eating well to sustain and recover your health. If you found most health advice to be so generic as to be meaningless, or so extreme that it's unrealistic, and you don't mind the occasional F-bomb, you've come to the right place. From dissecting the latest nutrition trends to breaking down published research and sharing my own clinical experiences, I'm on a mission to foster clarity amidst all the confusion and empower you to have the health you need to live a life you love. Now let's get started. Kate Mahoney, welcome to Blasphemous Nutrition. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm super excited to be here. I absolutely love you and your podcast, and this is just going to be, in my opinion, such a fun conversation because I love health geeking out, and I know that you're a fellow health geek, so yay! So true. Yes. What I'm especially excited about is to just kind of learn more about what you're doing, because you have you are blasphemous. I'm just gonna call it like I see it. Yes. Call. And how do you see me as blasphemous, Aimee? Like, why did you want me on here, I guess is a good question. Well, you kind of lead with this relatively blasphemous statement that all supplements are crap. Well, almost all. Almost all. We have to add that caveat. It's true. It's true. There's always an exception to every rule, right? The nuance is the name of the game. Yes. But by and large, that's kind of your take on the supplement industry, is that essentially, most of them are crap. Even those of us who are skilled professionals recommending supplements are often recommending crap, and we don't even know that we're doing it. Absolutely. Yes. And speaking as a supplement expert who has years of comprehensive supplement education under my belt, in addition to all of my professional experience, I'm not just saying that to cause an uproar or a ruckus. I am honestly saying it because I want health professionals and consumers to be better informed about the truth when it comes to dietary supplements. So thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely, yes. And that's why I have you here, because I want to know what I don't know. Yeah. And I also want our listeners to be more savvy consumers. Because I'm aware that you can't just go to your grocery store and pick up something off the shelf and expect it to be of high quality. I'm aware of that. But I've been taught, correctly or not, that the supplements that we have access to are of a higher quality, of a higher standard, and more efficacious than what you'd find at a grocery store or a random, heaven forbids, what you'd find on Amazon, right? Or saying specifically that health practitioners are under the misguided notion that the professional and practitioner lines are better than the over-the-counter supplements. I just wanted to clarify that.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for
Correct.
clarifying.
Yes. That's what I've been led to believe. And I'm stepping into this conversation a little concerned that you're going to tell me I'm wrong in that assumption. And most of us who are educated on supplements receive that education from supplement companies, not unlike physicians receiving their pharmaceutical education from the pharmaceutical companies. So there's a level of perverse incentiveness there on behalf of our suppliers, yes, to perhaps only share what they want us to see.
Absolutely. 100%.
So that is in fact happening.
Yes, 100%. Although I will say that there are the few and far between supplement companies who are doing the right things in the right way for the right reason, but they are the rarity and the exception, not the norm. The norm is everything in the name of profit, right? So my hope is that during our conversation together today, that I can provide you and your listeners with some really helpful takeaways for how to make better informed decisions going forward, to be able to begin to identify, and I can't say identify because, well, it would take a whole lot of education, more than a day's worth of education and more than a month's worth of education to do that, but begin to identify what are likely higher quality supplements from all the crap that are out there. So there is a ray of hope, Aimee.
Oh,
even
good.
though I'm going to be, yes, bursting your bubble, I am sorry to say, there are still rays of hope.
Well, I've had my suspicions, and I just because I don't want something to be true doesn't mean that I don't suspect it is in fact not.
Yes, I hear you there. And, I really, really appreciate your discerning critical thinking and the fact that you're bringing this honesty to your podcast. It is one of the things that I absolutely love about it.
Oh, thank you.
So let's jump in. What do you want to know?
Let's jump in. Well, let's start with, I'm curious, is it easier to look at a supplement and determine, oh, this is crap? Or is it easier to look at a supplement and say, this might not be crap?
That's a really good question. Okay. Yes to both in different ways.
Okay. All right. Let's start with identifying the shit that's out there.
Okay. Identifying the shit. A really good rule of thumb for being able to identify what is likely going to be a lower quality product is a company who makes everything under the sun, right? They are literally producing everything. That is not a good sign. And the reason why is because there are different supplement categories. There are different types of supplements. Every single one of these different types of supplements, like let's compare a mineral with a vitamin with a herb. They all require different quality standards and specifics that you need to be aware of when you're purchasing the raw material to make it, right? So that's where raw material, what is this made of? What is the quality that this is made of? Is it actually a bioavailable nutrient form is something that every supplement company should be asking themselves when they're purchasing something. Not what is the cheapest, like magnesium citrate, but what is the most effective, which is magnesium that's been chelated to an amino acid, right?
Yeah.
And
so this would, for our listeners, this would be,
for an example, magnesium glycinate. But there's also, it gets really complicated. And I know that you're familiar with this as a practitioner, so I'm going to be speaking your language, but I hope I'm not speaking above the language of your listeners. When it comes to glycine, there are actually some people who can react to it when it's been distilled down into a singular amino acid. So there are some people who do not do well with magnesium glycinate, right? So just because magnesium glycinate is a more bioavailable form of magnesium, that doesn't mean it's for everyone. There are people who would do better with a different form of magnesium, such as magnesium taurinate, right? So taurine is another amino acid. And the great thing about any mineral that is chelated to an amino acid is that you're getting two nutritional cofactors. But because nutritional cofactors have synergistic and antagonist relationships, you have to be careful about making sure that you're not disrupting this finite homeostatic balance inside the body. Because if we're taking too much of anything, then it becomes a burden to the body that the body has to go through the process of eliminating and, right? There are so many different factors to bring into this. So that was just me talking about minerals. There's also herbs. When it comes to herbs, there are so many considerations when it comes to quality, from the growing practices to the harvesting practices. Was it actually grown using traditional methods in rich soil that will help it to have the medicinal benefits that it's actually meant to? Was it harvested at the right time, the optimal time, to ensure it will have the medicinal benefits that it was meant to? Was it processed in the right way to ensure that it will continue to have the medicinal benefits that it's meant to? So the reason why I say this is because you can't just buy any old herb off the shelf and expect it to be good and to work good and to do what it's supposed to do. Quality matters. It matters when it comes to supplements. You want to know and understand that what it is that you're using, what it is that you're spending your money on is actually worth the money. So that's just some examples that jump to the top of my head. But as you listen to me talk, I want to check in. My goodness, I'm so sorry about this frog in my throat right now. We've had some wildfire smoke in the area, and my respiratory system is a little rough. So I apologize to the listeners, but hey, it makes me sound kind of gravelly and sexy. So there's that. Woot. We'll just go with that, right? Just go with it. Lean into the sex factor, Kate. We'll lean into it. Raspiness. So as I was sharing those things, is there anything that came up for you that you want to dive deeper into or touch on in addition to what I shared?
I think I want a little bit of clarification, because it almost sounds to me like you're saying that if an herb is not grown in the traditional way, harvested in the correct way, that it will not be effective, which to me sounds a lot like saying, well, if you aren't eating organic food grown by small farmers, you're just eating shit. And that doesn't sit well with me. So I'm just having trouble accepting that it has to be that high of a standard or it's not going to be efficacious at all.
Okay, so let's look at when it comes to herbs. Herbs are traditional wisdom.
Yeah.
This traditional wisdom was passed down for thousands and thousands of years, hundreds and hundreds of generations. It was very well known that when it comes to the medicinal benefits of these herbs, that they do require different ways of growing them.
Sure.
They literally require it. They do require different harvesting methods. They do require different processing methods. All of this herbal knowledge is something that is well known and that is established in order to, and you're actually using specific parts of the plants to get the specific purposes that you are after.
Right. That is an important thing to know.
Yes.
Yes, that a root does not act the same way in the body as a flower
as
would.
a leaf.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So taking that into consideration, that a root is not going to have the same impact or effectiveness like a dandelion root, has different medicinal properties than the dandelion leaf, right? And that raspberries have different medicinal benefits than red raspberry leaf. So this is, when you look at it like that, it makes it very clear that, yes, making sure that you're growing them using these traditional methods, harvesting them using these traditional methods, just like the herbalists and the wise women and the shamans and all of the traditional medicine people, the Ayurvedic practitioners, the traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, all of these different traditional medicine forms all over the world. This is true when it comes to herbs. It's just true. It's not the whole, if you're not buying and eating organic food, then, right? It is more important than that because it is medicinal. And if a company is not doing it in these traditional ways, in my opinion, it is a waste of money. And you could be ingesting things that your body doesn't need, or that are worthless, or that are even potentially harmful to you.
Simply by how it was harvested?
Simply by how it was grown, how it was harvested, how it was manufactured. The question is, are you really getting what you paid for? Right? And there are effective economical options out there, because this plays into your second question. So, speaking to that specifically, the way that you can tell that a supplement is likely going to be higher quality is if a company specializes in a specific category of supplements. Now, I'm going to use a really blatant example, which is homeopathics. So homeopathics literally are considered a pharmaceutical in and of their own right. They are overseen by their own pharmaceutical agency in the United States. It is the Homeopathic Pharmacopoeia of the United States. But anywhere that homeopathics exist, there is a pharmacopoeia for those homeopathics in that country. This all comes down to and back to the individual whose name slips my mind right now, who discovered homeopathic medicines in Germany. And the standards of the homeopathics, if they are being done ethically and correctly, have to meet those German pharmacy homeopathic standards. The US meets those. India meets those. There are some other countries that don't occur to me right now that meet those. But a country has to adhere to those original German standards in order to be considered a true homeopathic, right? So homeopathics are one way of being able to see that if you're buying something from a company that specializes in homeopathics, you know for sure you are getting what you are paying for. Herbs are another really great example of that. If you are purchasing from a company that specifically specializes in herbs, you are more likely to be getting something from a company that specializes in that traditional knowledge, that is doing things. Now, you still want to look into the company to find out, okay, what is this company saying? What are they doing? What are the reasons for making these products? So that's a really good way of doing it. Another good example, the fatty acid products. Don't just buy, please don't just buy tons of fish oil at Costco. I beg of you, just don't do it. Because when it comes to fish oil, This is something that I share regularly. Only 10 to 15% of the supplements that are on the market are worth taking. When it comes to fatty acid products, those stats are even lower.
Yeah.
It's more like 5% of the supplements on the market that are a fatty acid product are even worth taking. Please do yourself a favor. Number one, I've got 2 tips for your listeners. Number one, buy from a company that specializes in fatty acids. And number 2, don't just swallow those soft gels. The way that you can truly tell that a fatty acid product is high quality is by the taste. You want to taste it. It should taste like nothing more than fresh fish. If it makes you gag, spit it out. If it does not taste good to you, spit it out. Because fat should always taste good. Fat makes food taste good. And not only that, fat digestion starts in the mouth via salivary lipase, right? So by chewing these fats and taking them with our food, we are actually supporting our body's ability to utilize these wonderful, beneficial, essential fatty acids that are so good for us.
Now, aside from, it's much easier for me to accept what you just said about the fatty acids, because when I look at the dosing that's out there, the dose is so low, it's meaningless. And, when you look at where the research shows efficacy, it's often at a dose that would require people to take 6 or 8 or 9 caps of their, Costco fish oil to get a dose that was meaningful, assuming that huge jar of Costco fish oil hasn't already gone rancid by the time they've received it. So aside from the dosing that is often too low and the questionable freshness of the product, is there anything else regarding fish oil that people need to be mindful of?
Well, I just got to say that all those points that you just hit on is the reason why, even though I'm a supplement expert, I'm a food first practitioner.
Yeah.
Because the easiest way to actually get that dose is to eat food.
It's true. It's true. You can take 9 caps of fish oil in the morning, or you can have 4 ounces of salmon. You get to choose.
Yeah. And please don't just give me 4 ounces. Give me 8 ounces.
Thank
I
you.
love that food. Like, oh my gosh, yes.
It's a hard sell for a lot of people, though. So you got to be realistic.
Well, see, and that, let's go ahead and speak to that for a little bit, because you and we have both benefited from having lived in Seattle for periods of time of our lives. So we have actually had access to fresh seafood.
True.
We know what it is supposed to taste like. A lot of people, depending on where they live, they don't have access to that. So my question is, not my question, my suggestion to a lot of people is, it doesn't just have to be seafood. If there are animal proteins, meats that are properly raised, that are actually pasture raised, guess what? They're actually going to be higher in those beneficial omega-3s than something that was raised in a feedlot on corn, which is going to be higher in omega-6. Ruminants that are naturally grazing in pastures, they have a healthier ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. So that's where, once again, the quality of the food that we're sourcing and eating comes in, because sometimes the quality of a food is having a direct impact on why our fatty acid levels are out of balance. Right? I mean, it's like, if we dig a little deeper, some things become clear. And that's a big reason why a lot of people are trying to do things like take the fish oil, because maybe they can't afford to eat that really super high quality animal protein all the time. So it's more effective, easier, and advantageous to them
to purchase a fish oil and take that in addition to eating something that is maybe not that super pristine, platinum level quality meat. But if you do that, make sure you're actually taking a good fish oil product, like a really good, high quality fish oil product is my suggestion, because otherwise you're doing potential damage to yourself if you're
right? Rancid oil.
if you're taking bad one. Yeah, exactly. So can you speak a little bit more to efficacy and how we can better ascertain if a supplement is going to be effective or not? I mean, as a practitioner and as someone who's a little bit familiar with reading scientific literature, I can take a look at the studies and determine whether or not the dose in whatever I'm recommending is on par with what the literature shows is an efficacious dose to create the desired result. But it certainly isn't reasonable to ask the general population to go spelunking in PubMed to figure this out for themselves. So, and aside from dosing, there's other issues which will determine whether or not it's efficacious, right? So how do we take this information that to a large degree is inaccessible to most and help empower just the average person to find something that's going to be beneficial? And well, let's actually take it. Let's take it to yeah. I know that's probably an unreasonable thing to even consider.
That is okay. Well,
I might as well be asking for a sane presidential election. I mean,
I know, Aimee. I will be honest with you. So I have been looking at these problems for a while, and I'm going to share a little insider piece of information with you that I have been discussing with some of my inner circle for about the past month, which is that I realized the importance of getting this body and knowledge of information that I have about supplement quality and how to differentiate the quality between the crap really needs to get into the hands of the people.
yeah.
And so I actually just started in the last month. I am moving towards translating my supplement quality specialist curriculum into a book for consumers so that you can literally, like, it's going to have these charts and tables and graphs and information so that you can literally open it up and be like, does this have the effective form of vitamin A in it?
Mm-hmm.
Or does this have the effective form of vitamin B1 in it? Or is this an effective mineral form, right? Because most people, including practitioners, they don't have that information. And I kind of want to go back to something that you spoke to. You were talking about looking up the studies and the research and everything. And here's the thing. I'm going to kind of burst your bubble again here, and I'm really sorry about that in advance. However, when it comes to the efficacy studies, the most of the studies out there, they're not even studying the most effective forms of a nutrient. So most of the studies that are out there on magnesium, guess what forms they're using? The forms with the least bioavailability that are the cheapest. Magnesium oxide and magnesium citrate are the ones that have most often been studied, just as an example. And magnesium citrate is crap.
Well, it sure makes you crap.
It does. It is cheap and easy to make. And quite frankly, so does magnesium oxide, because I'll be blunt, magnesium citrate is a tiny bit more bioavailable than magnesium oxide. Magnesium oxide literally is not bioavailable at all.
Wow.
The only purpose that it serves is that it irritates the lining of the colon, forcing the body to draw moisture into the colon to help alleviate the irritation that the magnesium oxide is creating. which is why people go crap. And let me just tell you, since most people, well, I'm not telling you, you already know this. As you know, most people are severely dehydrated, like chronically dehydrated. Forcing the colon to take water that is already in short supply in the body into the colon just to alleviate the irritation that the magnesium oxide is causing to the body is like compounding a problem. It's really bad. So I say that speaking as a supplement expert, that there are so many things that people are doing. Oh, I'm constipated, so I'm just going to take magnesium because it helps me crap. Guess what, people? That is not an answer. First of all, get yourself optimally hydrated. Second of all, try to consume more whole foods that contain naturally occurring fiber, like fruits and vegetables. They're great. They really are. Whole grains. They're great. I love them. I cannot say enough good things about them. These are the things that can help you go crap.
Yeah.
Those are the things that are meant to help you go crap. Naturally occurring fiber in food and being hydrated. If water doesn't sound good to you, drink other things. Okay, so I'm going off kilter here, going back to the studies.
Yes.
So most of the studies that are out there are studying nutrient forms that are not bioavailable. And that means that the results of these studies are skewed because we're not even studying bioavailable nutrient forms. That's not what's being studied.
So what about the studies then that show an impact, that show this is effective?
Okay, so that goes into, remember when you were talking about effective dosing?
Yeah.
You spoke to that. One of the metaphors that I really like to share with my Supplement Academy students is when it comes to supplements, what is going to have the best impact while doing the least damage, an arrow or a sledgehammer? Right? So if we're using effective nutrient forms, we don't need to have a sledgehammer dose. If we're using an effective nutrient form, we can use an arrow. It's very targeted. In fact, a really good example, there is a company, their name is Biotics. They're a practitioner line. Now, there are some things that this company does very well. One of the things that I love that they do are their B vitamins, their B complexes. Specifically, they have 3 different formulas that correspond with the different adrenal patterns, the hypoadrenic, hyperadrenic, and the people who switch back and forth between the hypo and hyper because their adrenals are so that it's like, whipping a horse to try to get it to continue moving. So they've got these 3 different formulas. What I love about each of those different formulas is that they are very bioavailable nutrient forms. So a lot of practitioners look at them and go, these are too low, because they're so used to using supplements that are such crap that you have to have these exponentially high nutrient forms. B vitamins are something that we only need in trace amounts.
Right.
We only need a few milligrams a day, if even that much. And yet you'll see these B complexes out there that are like B25, B50, B75 that are 25, 50, or 75 milligrams each of every single B vitamin. Guess why, people? Because the nutrient forms in those B vitamin complexes are not bioavailable. Those products stress people's bodies the F out because it is a toxic burden, because it's an ineffective nutrient form. And then for someone's body who is already stressed out, these nutrient forms that aren't bioavailable, they have to use other nutritional cofactors in their body that are already in short supply because they're already depleted to try to convert these synthetic isolates into a usable form. It's compounding the problem. So it's better to identify a product that actually has the effective forms and that is using the effective forms in a targeted arrow approach rather than the sledgehammer method.
So that means, and I'm sure many listeners can relate to this, when you are looking at a supplement like a B complex and you turn it over and you look on the back and it says, oh, wow, it has 350% of the RDA for this B vitamin and 1,226% of the B12 that I need, that isn't a good thing.
Not necessarily, depending on the nutrient forms in the product. Yeah. So, and here's the thing. Okay. There's the isolate forms of nutrients, which I referred to a little bit earlier. But then when it comes to the B vitamins specifically, there's something known as a coenzymated form. The reason why they make this coenzymated form is because when it comes to the synthetic isolates, a synthetic form of a nutrient is a molecular mirror to the actual nutrient form. Nutrients are like locks and keys with the cell receptors in our body. So if something mirrors a nutrient molecularly, guess what? It is not the right molecular shape to fit into that keyhole. It's like trying to fit a right hand into a left hand glove. It does not fit, right? So just as a visual image, remember when you were a kid, you have a right hand glove and a left hand glove. And I'm not talking about those ones that are interchangeable that you can wear on either hand. I'm talking about the really nice gloves that have the thumb put how it's supposed to be, so that if you try to put your right hand into a left hand glove, it's not going to fit. Right?
Right.
That's what I'm talking about when I say that these synthetic isolates are a mirror image of how these nutrients are naturally found in nature. There are scientists who figured that out, and they tried to figure out how to convert these synthetic isolates into the bioavailable form that is found in nature so that the body actually recognizes them and can utilize them without needing to expend any energy or additional nutrients to convert them itself. So with B vitamins, these are known as coenzymated B vitamins, where they have gone through an additional step in the lab in order to make them molecularly mimic the nutrient as it is found in nature. However, you cannot just as a consumer go out and pick up a product, unfortunately, that says that it is a coenzymated B vitamin, because I have gone around and I have picked up different bottles of things that say that they are coenzymated B vitamin, and some of them are coenzymated, some of them are isolates, and then some of them are methylated, which, can I just say, as a supplement expert, it is so flippin' irresponsible and really chops my hide and pisses me the bleep off.
There are so with nutrition. You can drop an F-bomb here.
Pisses me the fuck off that there are so many supplement companies, and this is happening because of influencer practitioners. Now there are so many supplement companies that are putting the methylated forms of folate in their products because they think it's quote unquote better. Okay, I've got news for you people. The methylated form of folate, not everybody needs it. Methylation is a natural and healthy process of the body. Yes, sometimes people need it. Sometimes if the body is having difficulty methylating, then while we practitioners are addressing the root cause with a client, maybe we will give them the methylated form of folate for a short period of time, therapeutically.
And having a genetic variance is not alone indicative that you need to have. Like if you have the MTHFR genetic variance, that does not mean that you are forever inhibited and unable to methylate simply because of that variance. I just want to state that.
Yes,
not
a disease language. But that's literally, yes, that is literally what I was going to say next. Because as you know, and I know you have spoken to on this podcast, epigenetics is affected by nutrigenomics.
What that means is our genes are not necessarily always expressed, right? It requires stress and things like that in order to activate them. So people who have any variation of the MTHFR gene will not always need methylfolate all the time. They will need it if and when the gene is expressed. Otherwise, they don't. And just in case your listeners don't know this, did you know that methylfolate toxicity is a thing? It's true. You can actually, yes, you can overdo it on methylfolate. There are symptoms and everything. And they figured this out because back before we knew better, like in the 90s and the early 2000s, when they were talking about the methylated form of folate and how some people have this MTHFR gene mutation and blah, blah, yada, yada. And it was all this big rage, trendy thing of, oh, I have it, I should take it. They were starting to discover that when they were giving people with the MTHFR variation that needed the methylated form of folate, they were starting to see these unexpected signs and symptoms in these individuals, and they started testing them and realizing that their methylfolate levels were exceptionally high, disrupting all these synergistic and antagonistic cofactor relationships in the body. It was a very steep learning curve at the time that these practitioners went through to help us now understand better that, number one, just because you have the MTHFR variation does not mean you should be taking methylfolate all the time. And number two, there really is such a thing as too much of a good thing, right?
Yeah. And so for our listeners who might not have fully grasped the antagonistic and synergistic relationships and nutritional cofactors, if you imagine all of the nutrients in the body working together as a concert, as a symphony, taking too much methyl tetrahydrofolate would be like the violin section going off the walls and completely like overpowering the rest of the symphony and really ruining the show for you. So everything works in concert and has an appropriate balance. And this is also one of the things that we want to be mindful of with supplements, especially folks who want to keep it simple. They want it easy. They want to take a one a day multivitamin and call it good. Like you can't do that because, iron and calcium, like you can't absorb them both at the same time. There's also the issue with magnesium and calcium, right? And this is where it might sound really great and convenient to just do your one a day and feel like you've checked off the box, or have your bowl of total cereal in the morning and feel like you did it. No, please don't do it. Speaking of synthetic isolates that are not bioavailable, anything that says enriched, guess what you're getting? Synthetic nutrients that are not bioavailable to the body. The cheapest, least effective form of nutrients are used to quote unquote enrich food. It's not a way to get your nutrients. It's not the best way to get your nutrients, that's for sure. I mean, I can't piss on it completely because, we did have some significant issues with nutrient deficiencies or enrichment. So it's not like, I can't say it's all a bad thing, but yeah, certainly if we're talking about the most impactful form, yes, it's probably not going to be the best way. Absolutely. Yes. And thank you so much for adding that very balanced caveat because you're exactly right. I do my best. I'm not without myosin, but I do try. I do try. You and me both, my colleague. You and me both. All right. So let's try and kind of wrap this up into something that our listeners can take away and feel a little bit more clear on, a little bit more empowered. If someone was about to go to, let's say they were about to go to Fullscript or another quality supplement area online or in a store, what are the things they need to keep in mind as they're navigating that?
where are the anchors? Where are the anchors that they can take with them moving forward?
Okay. I have 2 anchors.
Beautiful.
First, I'm going to refer to one that we spoke to, or that I spoke to earlier in this conversation, which is look for the companies that specialize in a specific type of supplement, right? Start there. And then I'm going to make you all familiar with something that some of you may already be aware of, but for those of you that aren't, we're going to talk about a term today called excipients. So excipients are all of the other ingredients in a supplement that are not considered a nutrient in the supplement. They are things like a binder that is used to make a tablet so that those nutrients actually hold together in that tablet form. That other ingredient, that excipient, is what's holding all those nutrients into that tablet shape, right? So when it comes to excipients or other ingredients, what I strongly recommend that you do is after you identify the companies that are specializing in a specific category, such as fish oil or herbs or something like that, that you grab a bottle off the shelf, turn it over, look at the bottom of the supplement facts where it says other ingredients. If a supplement has 3 or less other ingredients, it is likely higher quality. And if you actually recognize what those ingredients are, like you look at them and you say, oh, I know what this is, it's also probably higher quality when it comes to those other ingredients. So look for products where those other ingredients, those excipients, you recognize them, you know what they are, and a product has 3 or less excipients. Those 2 things mean you are likely getting a higher quality, more effective product.
Excellent. Kate Mahoney, thank you so much for spending this time with me today.
Absolutely. This was a blast.
Any and all information shared here is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not to be misconstrued as offering medical advice. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a provider-client relationship. Note, I'm not a doctor nor a nurse, and it is imperative that you utilize your brain and your medical team to make the best decisions for your own health. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked to this podcast are at the user's own risk. No information nor resources provided are intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Be a smart human and do not disregard or postpone obtaining medical advice for any medical condition you may have. Seek the assistance of your healthcare team for any such conditions and always do so before making any changes to your medical, nutrition, or health plan.